A recent poll done by Reuters, which was supported by the oil and gas industry and paid for directly by Japanese automotive, kidding, found that only, a disappointingly small number of Americans would buy an EV. These numbers, if they're true, are quite shocking. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. My name's Sam Evans and I'm coming to you from Bangkok in Thailand, and I'm the Electric Viking. It's great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, we've done more than 2,800 videos over the past, less than 2 years since we started this channel. Make sure you check out some of those videos. Now, I firmly believe that whoever was surveyed in this report, I'm going to call it, I'm going to say some of them were living in the deep south and they don't actually know what an EV is. Maybe. Surely this cannot be correct. Surely there are not only 34% of Americans who would consider buying an EV. If you actually have a look at the rest of the numbers in this report, they're equally as shocking. There's some really unrealistic expectations from car buyers. The thing that's weirdest about this is they're not demanding the same things out of their own cars. Out of the gas cars they have now. They want more out of an EV. They want more range. They want less price. They want to pay less and have more range than what they already get today out of their gas-powered cars. That's what I don't get here. It doesn't make sense. Reuters reported that a bit more than 1/3 of Americans would consider buying an EV for their next car in a new survey. The 7-day poll completed on Monday of this week found 34% of all respondents would consider an EV. 31% just flat out said no. Among Democrats, this is interesting, 50% said they would consider an EV. Among Republicans, it was only 26%. 27% of independents said they would consider one. So independents and Republicans were about the same. There are now more than 80 electric car models for sale in the United States, and EVs represented nearly 6% of all US sales in 2022. Those numbers have increased this year closer to 10%. EV sales are up more than 60% as well. So what's going on? Does this actually match up with reality? Does it match up with the demand that car manufacturers are seeing? Well, no, it doesn't. In fact, that's why I think this poll, this so-called survey, the so-called objective survey, was created by some sort of lobbyist group, or at least funded by some, people who don't want EVs to succeed. Companies who don't want EVs to succeed. Why do I say that? Well, think about it. Ford have more than 250,000 reservations for the F-150 Lightning pickup truck. That's more reservations than any other manufacturer has for a gasoline-powered car in the US. What about GM? Silverado EV, same story. Lyric, same story. There are so many EVs with hundreds of thousands of pre-orders in the US. The only reason that they don't have more than that is because the manufacturers have basically put a cap on the number of reservations that they'll even take. What about Tesla? Well, Tesla had 1.65 million reservations for the Cybertruck the last time I checked. We're talking millions of reservations for EVs. Now, you might be thinking, but they're just reservations. Well, it shows an intent, doesn't it? It shows interest. There's millions of people interested in buying an EV for their next car, and they even put down money. All those reservations required at least some level of deposit. So there's clear intent from those people. They may not follow through, but there's clear intent, meaning they are in the 34%, and apparently everyone else is in the outside of that. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. Why is there not millions of reservations for gasoline-powered cars? If 66% of Americans only want a gasoline-powered car. Now, President Joe Biden wants 50% of all new vehicles sold in 2030 in the US to be either EVs or plug-in hybrids. Now, we all know that most people who buy an EV would prefer an EV over a plug-in hybrid. Tesla Inc. is the leading EV maker in the US. But other top-selling models include Ford's Mach-E, which they plan on making a couple of 100,000 this year, General Motors with the Chevrolet Bolt, and Hyundai's Ioniq 5 plus the Kia EV6. Of course, then you've got Volkswagen with the ID3 and the ID4, and there's just a plethora of new models coming to market. The poll found 56% of respondents would be willing to pay no more than $50,000 or $49,999 for an EV. Biden administration won a significant expansion of the $7,500 electric vehicle tax credits and other battery and EV manufacturing incentives to shift the industry toward electric models, but EVs still cost more on average than $50,000. That is changing. The price is coming down. One of the key reasons for that is that Tesla, with more than 60% market share, is now selling EVs cheaper. Model 3 is obviously much cheaper than $50,000. The Model Y is getting close to that $50,000 mark. Plus, when you get the incentive of the $7,500, it does bring it below $50,000. What I'm also wondering is, how is Joe Biden in power? I mean, if only 34% of Americans want an EV today, meaning what was that? Say, when he got elected, maybe, 28%, 27%? I mean, we all knew this was coming from Joe Biden, right? Why is it that if Americans don't want EVs, he's even in power? Why is it that Trump isn't still in power? Something just doesn't seem to actually make any sense here. The poll found that 35% of Americans want an EV offering 500 or more miles of range. Now, obviously, there's not many EVs in the world that have that much range today, for good reason. Most people don't actually really need it. Another 37% wanted a minimum of 300 miles. So that means that 72% of Americans want a minimum of 300 miles of range. That's an interesting number. The world's top automakers are spending hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, Volkswagen alone is spending $200 billion. They're actually spending more than $1 trillion on going electric. And different states around America are starting to ban the sales of gasoline-powered cars in 2035 and beyond. In the coming weeks, the US Environmental Protection Agency plans to propose new, more stringent vehicle emissions rules through at least the 2030 model year. Those rules could make it hard for many manufacturers in the US to sell their existing cars, because those emissions regulations are likely to come in line with Euro 7 emissions regulations, which are now being copied by the Chinese in China and will be put into place in July of this year, making it impossible for many legacy companies to sell millions of cars sitting in parking lots today in China after July. In December 2021, the EPA finalized new light-duty tailpipe emissions requirements through the 2026 model year that reversed President Donald Trump's rollback of car pollution cuts. One big question is whether the new EPA rules will be consistent with California's aggressive efforts to ramp up zero-emission vehicles and phase out new gas vehicles in 2035. It's not just California. Other states, including Washington, are following in their footsteps. California Air Resources Board Executive Officer Stephen Cliff told Reuters in December the federal government should look at stringency that's equivalent to our rules, where 68% zero emissions in 2030. So modeling that and looking at that as an option for 2030 is critical. Biden has not endorsed California's plan to phase out new gas-powered light-duty vehicles by 2035. In fact, he's been asked on that question several times and he hasn't responded. The Reuters Ipsos poll conducted online surveyed 4,500 people nationwide and has a credibility interval of about 2 to 3 percentage points in either direction, meaning it's supposedly incredibly accurate and supposedly represents what Americans truly think and truly feel. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.